slide, please. And in terms of when you're crafting your story, these are kind of the top four pro tips, best practices to keep in mind. You want to make sure that your message is focused and concise. You want to make sure that it is personalized and localized, tell a story. And then you also want to make sure that it includes data and evidence. So as you're drafting that pitch, like these are the top four things to keep in mind. You could have anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, and there may be other people in your your meetings with you. So you want to have that 1 minute, that 2 minute, that 5 minute, that 10 minute, all of those different lengths of pitches so that whatever your meeting ends up looking like, you're prepared to give your top line introduction, your top line ask. And I will pass it back over to Erin to talk a little bit about the resources that COABE has already put together and that are accessible, and then also the resources that you'll have when you come to BC.
Great, thank you, Alicia and Elise. So, I wanted to point out a couple of the resources that you have available prior to going to Flood the Hill. As we mentioned, those state fact sheets, you can find those on the Educate and Elevate website by using the map tool and selecting your state. So you'll be able to preview that. And then we'll also have some other helpful documents in there and a briefer version of our 2025 legislative talking points. We'll give an overview of what a legislative meeting looks like. We'll even have a printed map in there of the different legislative buildings and marked with accessible paths and just to help you kind of navigate your way around. Although I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I just use the map function on my phone, set it to walking, and then just quietly listen to what see where Siri tells me to turn. But we'll have all of those available in a folder that we'll provide to you on Monday night, next Monday at the training. But I did want to point out the Adult Education and Family Literacy Week Toolkit. So both of these things that you see on your slide right now can be found at COABE's AEFL Week webpage. So this first one, the AEFL Week Toolkit, will provide you again with those federal some of that federal information. It'll walk you through what a sample legislative meeting looks like and provides you a lot of different tools to gather that data and to, for lack of a better word, do your homework. And then our 2025 legislative talking points. This document is at about 16 pages, so we have condensed it for your folders that you'll get next week. But if you wanted to see the full version, which includes links to the research, it has graphics in there to kind of help with some data visualization. You can also find that on the AEFL Week webpage. Now, do we have any adult learners or adult education alumni here in our webinar? I know we do. I see some names, but I'm not going to call you out. So,
I see
um,
4 raised hands, Erin.
oh, you can see raised hands. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Yay. So, welcome. We are so excited to have you with us. If this is your first time having legislative meetings or kind of sharing your story, I did send out um, um, a doodle to those who are not already COABE student ambassadors so that we can get you trained this week. And I will go ahead and share the links to those trainings this week in case your schedule has changed and you are able to attend or you didn't see the doodle. But regardless, we do have a COABE Student Ambassador Handbook that I'll be sending to each one of the adult learners who has registered. Um, I will warn you, this is like a 106-page handbook, but it walks through a lot of different types of advocacy. And when I send it to you, I'll point out those relevant pieces where if this is your very first time, You can kind of look through the portions that I note to you just to help you prepare. There's even activities in this handbook that help you kind of connect your story to data, and it'll be helpful for you to prepare. Again, I am not, the expectation is that you, not that you read 100 plus pages, but I will point out some really helpful things in there that will connect to our Flood the Hill event next week. Okay, I am Andrea Fricks. I do see your, I'll go right back here. If you're trying to take a screen grab real fast for the storytelling slide, because this is very helpful. And then I am going to continue on. So when you arrive in DC, COAB again is going to provide you with name tags, Hill meeting schedules, talking points, and meeting leave behind materials. Within your own participant folder, you'll have copies of everything that you are leaving behind for legislators in your state. But each one of those leave behind folders is going to be very specific to the state of that legislator. So if you are from Missouri, all of your leave behinds will be focused with Missouri information, Missouri student success stories, etc. And you'll be going to those state-specific meetings. So all of that will be there for you. All the meetings will be made for you. And I do know that sometimes those Hill meeting schedules do change, and we will be communicating that with you whenever that happens. And yes, so Doug, COAB and well, Penn Hill Group is setting up all of those meetings, so you do not need to set any of those up. And Ashley's question of how many meetings should we be prepared for? And I'll leave that for Penn Hill Group to answer as they see fit, but understandably, sometimes that really varies depending on state. Yeah, Alicia.
Yeah, I can pop in real quick to answer that one. It really is going to depend on the state. Some for most if you're coming to DC, we're reaching out to your two senators and your representative. For some states where there's a bunch of different people and a bunch of different representatives across the Flood the Hill recipients, we're reaching out to a bunch of representatives, and we might have you tag along to provide support to the same people who are from your state. So it really depends on the size of your delegation, I guess is the best way to put it. But you'll get but be prepared for like at least 3 meetings. And some of those might look like someone coming to the breakfast and you're meeting there with them, and others it might be that you're going to go to their office and meet with them directly there.
And Alicia, one of the other questions is about how many people in each group. So I think maybe the question is there a maximum and is there a minimum?
No, it definitely depends. I think I'm trying to remember what the largest group is. I think some states have like 8 or so people coming, so that's kind of on the larger side. Some states have one person. Generally, when there's one person, we'll try and, pair someone up. Maybe it's a COAB representative to tag along to give you some extra support. But it completely depends on the state what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then I think someone else asked about the getting the leave behind folders if you can't attend Monday night. We can bring those to the breakfast on Monday and get those to you.
Okay, these are great questions. I'm also trying to keep my eye on that Q&A as well, and we'll certainly look through those if there's anything that we cannot give a direct answer to right now. But I will say, I'm going to flag Elise because we do have a question in there about the fact that the Senate and the House committee bills don't match. So what is the process for like what happens then?
Sure thing. There's usually there will be a negotiation between the House and the Senate that the administration will take part in. At some point, this will not just be through negotiations from the committee members on the House and Senate appropriations bills. It will actually go to the leadership of the House and Senate. So Majority Leader Thune and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and Speaker Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries, the Minority Leader in the House, will be part of those negotiations along with President Trump. There is some theory that we might end up, just like we did this year, with a continuing resolution that goes for the entire fiscal year. That would mean adult education would continue to be funded because that it is funded in the current continuing resolution that we are operating under for FY25. So the pressure needs to be placed on all of these levels. That's why all of your members that you're meeting with are critical, because any one of them can go up to their leader and say, I need to have adult education funded. It is so critical for my district in whatever state I'm from. So every meeting that you're taking and having, and every conversation that you are having when you come to Washington and in the intervening weeks following are critical, critical, critical.
Thank you so much. I know it's an ever an ever evolving landscape, but the thing that is consistent is the need for our advocacy. So this is fantastic timing for us to be there and really connect with these individuals face to face. And so I am curious, I'd love to hear in the chat if you've been to Flood the Hill before. Drop a line about your own experiences, any pro tips in the chat, and if you were around before COVID when it was AFL week, just on the hill and it wasn't called Flood the Hill, please share your experience as well. It'd be great to hear. I do know that I can speak from experience last year that the energy of being there with advocates from across the country was so incredible. And as Sharon said, we this year have almost 100 more advocates. So it means that it's going to be, in my estimation, 100 times more exciting and impactful. And don't check my math on that. So as you're typing that in, I do want to turn it over to Genesis, who's going to share some additional information about opportunities to connect during Flood the Hill.
Hello, everyone. My name is Genesis. I am COAPE's TikTok coordinator, and this is my first webinar, so excuse me if I'm a little bit nervous. But I am thrilled to just go to this event, go to AEFL Week, and I'm even more excited to meet you guys all in person. I think it'll be a really great week. So that being said, I just wanted to briefly talk about some interviews that will be going on during AEFL Week. I have reached out to the adult learners who will be attending. There is a new list of participants. So if you are a learner and you have not gotten an email by me, please leave your email in the chat and I will reach out to you directly. So I would really just love to get interviews of both the learners and other attendees. So the learners, what the interview will look like is just a brief testimony about their adult education story and their journey and how they've overcame their boundaries and different trials in their life and how adult education has impacted their lives. For the other attendees, I would just love a quick 3-minute explanation of why you are attending AEFL Week and how adult education has either impacted your life, or if you're a teacher, how you've seen it impact your students' lives. And I think that these interviews are really important because during the time when the funding was being withheld, we had like over 25,000 emails sent to legislators and 131 adult learner videos were sent. And look what happened, the funding was released. And so I think when people hear these testimonies from the adult learners and also the teachers and just other advocates, it's really powerful and moving. So these interviews are not meant to be scary or anything. Like I said, it'll only be about 3 minutes. and I would just love to hear your story. So if you're interested in that, please put your email in the chat and I will, contact you directly and we can set up a time to meet before AEFL week and kind of go over the exact questions I'll be asking. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Genesis. Erin, I wondered if you wanted to check out the chat and the Q&A. I think we've answered most of the questions. I will say that this new piece of having the learners interviewed there in person, as well as advocates that are really passionate about adult education, I think it's going to be really important because we know that we need to get as many messages to legislators as we possibly can about the value of adult education. So great. Thank you so much for that. Erin, I was just looking at the chat. I see a lot of folks responding here, so that's wonderful. I see a lot of questions too, so I'm just reading through to see if there are any that we have not answered yet.
Everything in the Q&A has been cleared, and I do see that anything policy related, I see Elise has been answering everything kind of logistics related. Michelle has been responding to. And then please, if anybody does have a question, if you're like me and you feel like you're prepared and then it's the night before you fly out and suddenly you have 20 questions, please do not hesitate to email those. We'll be very, very attached to our emails leading up to this event. So please don't hesitate to reach out. There is no question that seems too simple.
And Erin, I see some folks commenting in the chat box about how it's the first time they've done this before. I just want to encourage everybody. There will be an in-depth training Monday night. In person, you will feel the love and the excitement and you'll be able to ask a lot of questions there. But I think you'll feel a lot more comfortable once we do that in-person in-depth training. This is really just more about logistics. Making sure you know what we're providing before you go, making sure that you know that we're asking you to collect some data at the local level. Also, I do see a question about whether or not it's safe to walk at night. I highly recommend you take an Uber, a Lyft, or a taxi. That would be my advice to you. Elise or Alicia, do you guys feel differently about that?
I think it depends on where you're walking, but the city has been made safer, I guess, to some degree by National Guard officers walking around here. So there has been that if that gives you any reassurance. But I wanted actually to go back to the question about what the president's budget request said and why the request is to zero out adult education funding, that the House seems to have been taking, they took that into consideration and actually followed suit. I put that response in there that's direct from the education budget request. I think it would help in terms of the homework to look at what is being said by the president, by his administration. So you can think through, well, no, this is not true. Like, we need adult education because of this and this. What is being said here, this is not reflective of adult education in my state and in my community. And so that's another data point that you might think about, a homework point that you might think about over the next few days before you come to Washington. Because that may be the toughest question that you might get in a meeting. And again, we will go over all this on Monday, but the question could be, well, the president wants to zero this out. Why do you disagree with that? And that's what all of your thought process should be focused on, the data that you have, the stories that you tell about how important and valuable adult education is within your state and your community.
Thank you. I do see a lot of questions kind of about if you're unable to be there for that Monday night training. That's the wonderful thing about Tuesday, having that buffer space, both between I can't promise I'll have the time between the breakfast and the briefing, but certainly after that briefing, that kind of lunch period between the briefing and those Hill meetings when they begin, I'm more than happy to get you caught up at that point. So I can get you those schedules beforehand, but then kind of walking through some of those advocacy related questions that you have so that you are ready to go. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to close us out.
Great. I just want to say thank you. I'm so very excited about this. It's at the perfect time. It's at a time when we really need our voice to be heard, and just so happens to be Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week. So thank you to each of you who's making time to join us. Many of you on your own dime. I just can't thank you enough for that. Some of you, we've been able to work with Dollar General Literacy Foundation, for example, for our adult learners to be able to bring them in. We give them thanks, Essential Education, and the All In Barbara Bush Foundation. So very excited about that. I do want to mention we have 27 national partners in addition to over 130 individuals who will be joining us. And we'll be talking more about that because our room is only so big where we're having our legislative briefing. So we'll talk more about that on Monday evening. But it's a good problem to have. We're very excited about this. And I see that the schedule is up here. Thank you so much, Erin. We're going to send all of this information out to you again. We'll have some follow-up emails as well that will be coming out. So please keep an eye on your inbox. But as Erin mentioned, we are literally an email away. We're going to make sure that you have our email address as well. We'll put those in the chat box too. And I just want to say thank you again. Thank you to all of you who are making time for this. We have a fabulous panel lined up for the legislative briefing that's taking place. And thank you, Marilyn Pizzulo, Kendrick Marshall, Kathy Tyler, Erica Simmons, for joining us in DC and making time for this. So thank you all. One last round of thanks for our wonderful staff. So we have Michelle Childs for Forcoy, we have James Bonney, we have Aaron Vabornik, Christine Valdez, Bethel Fernandez, and Lindsay Lord, who've been providing a lot of back-end support for this event. So thank you to everybody. We look forward to seeing you in DC. Okay, anything else, Erin, before we go? If not, we'll see you all in just a couple weeks or just 1 week.
No, that is it. I'm just going to give it a second in case you need to grab any of those email addresses that were shared. But I think you probably do already have them. Again, we'll be sharing all of this out. But if at any time something is not making sense, again, we are kind of living Flood the Hill right now at Coabe and Penn Hill Group. So if there's anything that isn't coming across, anything that's not making sense to you, please reach out. And I cannot wait to see you all in 1 week in Yotel in Washington, D.C. for our training. Have a great week.